The mid-80s were a turning point for the near-dead art form known as video games. The crash of 1983 left barely anything to be desired in the gaming market, but Nintendo came in with their entertainment system and led the resurgence of the once-thought fad, but they weren't the only ones around with the console by this time. Atari came out of hiding and released the 7800, which didn't do very well compared to the Nintendo juggernaut, but another company called Sega decided to try their hands at sending their Mark III computer console to the States, under a new name that challenged you to the ultimate video games. It's the Sega Master System. With Master in its name, Sega says their system is not only for entertainment, but one the masters play. That may be incredibly goofy to say, but some will claim my statement to be true. The Sega Master System was released in September of 1986 as an 8-bit contemporary to the Nintendo's entertainment system. It definitely sets itself apart from the aforementioned NES, not only in color palette and shape, but also in tech. Yes, they both are 8-bit systems, but Sega has the upper edge with the technology of the day, getting a few more years over the NES. It has mastered the power of those bits of 8, but does it have what it takes to warrant high praise? To better understand the question I've just put forward, we must move away from the power base for the time being and have a look around it. Front and center we have the power button to turn the system on and off, and 2 controller ports to plug in the master control pad or maybe the light phaser. Both are quite different from the Nintendo standard. But these are reserved for AC reviews, which will be made in due time. You like the vents on the sides here? You shouldn't, because these aren't vents. They're just grooves of some sort. On the back is where you'll find the real ventilation, plus all the components and hookups tucked into one little corner on the right. As you can see, we have the AC adapter, RF out, the channel 3, channel 4 switch, and AV out, nicely packed together on the right back side. The rest of the back looks very lonely. It looks like it could use some ports. Perhaps an expansion port to add more bits with an add-on or a CD peripheral? Nah, that sounds dumb. Now on the bottom of the system we have quite the variety. You won't only find the regular footrests, screws, and labels, but we also have random holes, more vents, and a mysterious expansion slot. Maybe Sega did move forward with that CD peripheral idea, but in actuality it was never used for any sort of accessory because none were made to go with it. Now it just sits there in the darkness of its lid, probably being the only new thing on every system. I challenge anybody to change that. As somebody gets to work on my challenge, we return to the face of the system to see the main brain that makes the power base work. On top of the system is the cartridge input for you to insert the 8-bit cartridges of the same color palette to play the games, as well as not looking out of place with the rest of it. You can also find the reset button and a pause button, which is odd. You would have thought it would be on the controller itself, but alas, Sega has taken the Atari approach. If you want to pause the game, have the system close to you. Now, if only my cables were long. Before we move on to some gameplay, there's one little detail that I have yet to point out. Not only does the Master System play cartridge games, but also card-based games. Unfortunately, I don't happen to own any of them as they're somewhat hard to come by, but they are more on the lines of TurboGrafx U-cards. Just imagine if I was able to play these on this. The expansion port was actually here all along. But enough joking around, it's time to follow these blueprints to turn the system on and get to playing these games. The Master System has its own library of 8-bit titles that are superior in graphical style and possibly worth playing more than your inferior 8-bit Nintendo. You got your Sega classics like Alex Kidd, Phantasy Star, and Fantasy Zone, and even some third-party support that on occasion one-up the competition. This version of the original Double Dragon was able to pull off a slightly better look and retain two-player co-op mode that the NES version was sorely lacking. Sega did what Nintendo didn't. Hey, that's a pretty good slogan. Somebody ought to use it sometime. The Sega Master System is a pretty good console that not many of us remember due to the overwhelming popularity of the NES. But the few that do will for sure say that the Master System is an underrated console that should get more love from the gaming community. As it turns out, it still does to this day, but not here in the States. Brazil of all places can't get enough of this system. In fact, it has become the most popular system in that country, in turn making it the longest living system as of this video, and has forced Nintendo to withdraw their efforts of selling their own systems in that region. It's like an alternate world where Sega actually beat Nintendo. At least we know a little on where Sega gets the funds to stay afloat these days. If you ever happen to come across a Sega Master System around your area for a decent price, you should take it home and experience the 8-bit greats that the Brazilians know well, and the challenge that will always be there. It's the Sega Master System. The Master System's downfall was barely even felt in the gaming world, as Nintendo was still taking the industry by storm. But Sega came back with new systems that not only challenged them in the console market, but also in the handheld market. And on the next episode, we're going to look at the handheld successor to the Master System that showed if you wanted the best in handheld gaming, you'd skip the boy and got the gear. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video. And if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.